I would like to offer a slightly different perspective with this presentation, that of digital humanities. Eleftheria earlier mentioned a digital humanities compulsory course embedded within a digital archaeology program, but what if we have exactly the opposite? We're talking about digital humanities programs where a digital archaeology course is embedded in that. So in the last 5 years, I have been teaching digital archaeology and heritage courses, broadly defined, and we can talk about a definition of digital archaeology later, embedded in a digital humanities and spatial humanities master's program in my previous institution in Maynooth University in Ireland. There were no other archaeology courses, nor other archaeologists, no related departments, no staff members, nothing. And this actually has become quite common in the last few years. We have seen lots of digital archaeologists absorbed in digital humanities centers. And they're hired not to teach digital archaeology, but different methodological and theoretical frameworks for dealing with cultural heritage data. So of course there is a challenge here. How do you integrate digital archaeology or digital heritage in a program that typically doesn't get any or just a few archaeologists? Students coming from various humanities disciplines, literature, history, media, and so forth. How to make such a course relevant for a broader demographic, and how do you deal with archaeology, with archaeological information? How do you engage students with it? Can you do it actually? So the courses I have been teaching and I'm going to refer to here mainly revolve around the remediation of the physical in three-dimensional forms, having students consider the ethical, methodological, theoretical, and practical issues regarding representation, reconstruction, and reproduction. This includes tools for digitization, capturing processing software, annotation, online 3D repositories, but also, it's equally important to have the theories behind, the debates about the digitization of material culture, things like authenticity, reconstruction, transparency, the order of the digital, and so on and so forth. And despite the fact that much teaching in digital archaeology and digital humanities utilizes real-world examples, artifacts, and documentary sources, I want to argue here that the full pedagogic potential of experiential learning cannot be realized unless the pedagogy is embedded within a problem and project-based learning environment that follows the maker culture ethos. And although digital humanities has embraced maker culture, there's very little consensus regarding how learning by making and doing can empower students to become critical thinkers and makers through self-reflexivity, through problem solving. And of course, when we talk about making, we should not only constrain ourselves to physical making in maker spaces, but of course, digital making. In digital archaeology, we're doing lots of digital making that also brings about both personalized and collaborative learning opportunities. But how is the maker culture ethos applied to digital archaeology teaching? So it is very common, for example, to see digital archaeology being taught by using step-by-step tutorials through which students learn software interfaces and how to push buttons, as Ariana said earlier, how to operate hardware. And that's how I was taught at the University of Southampton 12 years ago in the Masters in Archaeological Computing. Such approaches often diminish a very complex methodological approach that requires understanding of the broader context and the challenges it poses to skills learning. And I personally have an allergy to the word skills, especially when it's used to define these low-level skills related to software and hardware. And teaching in such a way leaves little to no room for experimentation, creativity, and failure. And failure is very important, but unfortunately in academia is a taboo, since it is considered too embarrassing and too disruptive for both students and us as pedagogues to be consciously integrated into the teaching praxis. And there are many interesting examples of teaching in such a way. For example, Son Graham, in his critical making class, he talks about a culture of open notebooks and fail logs, where it's not the end product that is assessed, but the whole process and the reflection throughout the process. So transforming digital archaeology learning from an individual isolating experience based on the teaching of skills to a collaborative and experiential learning environment through problem and project-based learning, in which students work together to complete an end product that materializes their knowledge and understanding, equips them with a more holistic skill set, as well as the experience and confidence to respond to an increasingly competitive digital and creative economy in academia and beyond. And of course, problem-based learning is based on four core pillars, on four principles. It's self-directed, which means the students guide the whole learning process and instructors are only facilitators. It's collaborative, so students work towards a common goal. They learn from each other, peer learning, and so forth. It's contextual, so they work in meaningful contexts. This might be in the case of digital archaeology, heritage institutions, museums, working with real-life examples outside of the classroom bubble, and it's constructive because they discuss, they get peer feedback, they go into a discussion and debate about the various elements of their courses. But of course, teaching using PBL can be challenging, as the outcomes of the learning process are varied and often unpredictable. So I want just to show you one such example, that my 3D cuneiform project that my students of the MA in Digital Humanities and MSc in Spatial Humanities at Maynooth University in Ireland completed in the academic year 2017-18, and there's a link. You can visit the resource. So the whole course, worth 10 ECTS, was structured around this project. So the course was the project for which students undertook the entire project life cycle, from defining the problem, developing an approach, and delivering the solution. So there was a special collections library in Maynooth University that had a collection of 65 cuneiform tablets brought by an Irish army chaplain during World War I. And of course, it's challenging in every respect. So the first element, the first challenge is probably, well, to set up the project and work with the curator or whoever is the collaborator and persuade them that such a project would be a win-win situation. And given that the students I'm talking about are not archaeologists, do not have an archaeology background, probably apart from one or two, it's rather challenging to persuade a curator, in the case of an archaeological collection, that students, 15 to 20 students, could handle these objects and produce something meaningful. And I think this also comes from a bad experience that many museum curators have with internships, because they have lots of issues where they do something, but nothing gets out of this process. So the students started working in small teams, contributed to specific aspects of the final projects based on their skills, on their expertise and interests. And this included project management, content development, web design, creation of video content, audio narratives, technical integration, social media, and so forth. And of course, one aspect of the project was using photogrammetry to digitize the sources. The tablets. Project management was also taught through risk assessment, mitigation strategies, Gantt charts, tools such as Slack, Google Drive, Trello, and so on and so forth. But of course, these also had elements. The students had to decide about the standards. They had to follow the same procedure. They have to produce a quite unified result. And of course, team dynamics is always a challenge. There are people who hold back or push forward the team members that are more challenged than others, those who do what they say, and those who don't, those who decide not to follow whatever has been agreed, but do something different. And although this can be, I have to say, quite frustrating, all these are not dissimilar to the kind of dynamics you encounter in research teams and funded projects. So just last few slides, it was not only creating the 3Ds, but creating a knowledge site to host these models, providing contextual information, information about the process of creation, following a design thinking approach through which they ideate, prototype, test, refine, and so forth, wireframing a website, working as a team to come up with a design that will work for a particular collection. So design pretty, but also design functional. And some screenshots of the interface with the different sections, how the 3D models will be integrated, what metadata will be included, and so on and so forth. Even coming up with a logo for the project, doing some 3D printing that will be used for the educational programs of the library, and throughout the whole process reflecting on this through publicly accessible blogs. And finishing the project with a presentation of the Royal Irish Academy as part of the Virtual Heritage Network conference. So, to conclude, teaching digital archaeology is not only about teaching skills. It's not about learning how to use different software and interfaces. We said that in the earlier session. I cannot argue that the latter is not important. Of course, it's important. However, learning a software can be done in a flipped classroom setting, devoting class time to more creative and rewarding activities that enable independent thinking and problem solving. Problem and project-based learning is quite challenging for both instructors and students. Such projects require such a diversity of skills and can easily collapse due to various managerial, technological, or interpersonal issues. Therefore, require lots of preparation, supervision, and management. And in comparison to an ordinary class, it's more difficult to set up, more difficult to manage all the different floating elements and make sure that there will something tangible produced at the end. So collaborative, constructive, contextual, and student learning provides students with the ability to critically respond to different situations, enables them to exercise responsibility for their own learning, and use their weaknesses to improve their practice. They learn by making and doing, often by making mistakes, making wrong choices, often jeopardizing the whole project, but also reflecting on the process and the lessons learned. In my view, such teaching is far more engaging and rewarding for the instructors, but also for students who become socially responsible, more employable, and empowered to respond to emerging challenges in different fields, sectors, and the society. Thank you.